Thank you for joining us this evening. If you'll please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, again, thank you for joining us on this Valentine's Day evening. It feels really loud. You are loud. Okay. All right. The first item on our agenda is the land acknowledgement, and Director Weatherspoon is going to read that for us this evening.
Evergreen Public Schools resides on the traditional lands of the Chinookan peoples and the Cowlitz tribe. They have lived on and cared for this land and its waterways since time immemorial. We thank them for their stewardship and make this acknowledgement to open a space of recognition, inclusion, and respect for all Indigenous students, families, and staff in our community.
Thank you. All right, next up is to adopt the agenda. Can I get a motion to adopt this evening's agenda?
I move for adoption of the agenda as presented.
Second.
And before we take a vote, I'd like to ask that the item 7B on the school calendar, second reading and adoption, be moved to the next meeting.
Are you making an amendment to the motion?
I'm asking that we amend the motion.
Okay, Rob's asking to amend the motion. Do we have a second for that?
Second. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, moved and seconded. All in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you. All right, next up on the agenda this evening is special recognition. I think I'm going to call Craig up to the podium for Black History Month. Thank you, Craig.
This is, I thank the board. This is the board's. They've been doing. The board has been doing special recognition videos to celebrate certain months, culture celebrations, and this is, of course, we're in February for Black History Month. Wonderful Black History Month assembly at Evergreen High School. I was lucky to go to today. That was really special. So here's the video that you guys put together.
As part of our commitment to celebrating diversity and fostering an inclusive school community, we as a district and as a school board are participating in Heritage Month celebrations throughout the school year. This month, we honor Black History Month.
This year's national theme is Black Resistance, which serves as a powerful reminder of everything our Black and African American citizens have overcome to claim all that is promised by the American dream.
There is a powerful through line of resistance in Black history in this country. From the rebellion by enslaved Virginians, led by Nat Turner, to Harriet Tubman helping slaves travel into free states.
From the battles against whites-only Jim Crow laws and the civil rights movement of the 1960s, to the current Black Lives Matter movement that came as a reaction to the violent mistreatment of our citizens by those in authority.
Black history in the United States is the story of courageous individuals determined to ensure that the country gives all its citizens equal access to all that is promised.
As our first Black president, Barack Obama, said, a change is brought about because ordinary people do extraordinary things.
Throughout the month, our schools and students will honor Black history by reading books, watching films, and creating art that will help them learn about the complicated history that shapes our current climate.
They will also learn how Black culture is very much American culture in academics, politics, business, sports, the arts, and so much more.
Please join us in
celebrating Black History Month.
Thank you, Craig. All right, next up is years of service. I think I'm going to turn this over to Superintendent Boyd.
Yes, each year WASDA recognizes school directors for reaching a milestone years of service on their local school board. And so we have two people today that have reached milestones, and one is Ginny Gronwald for her 5 years of service. Eyes are big there, but You know,
You can hear my name.
so we just, we have a little certificate from you from WASDA and just want to thank you for your dedication, service, volunteerism, and all the things you do to make our district a special place. So thank you.
Yay, congratulations, Jenny.
And the second person who's reached a milestone is Julie Bocanegra for 10 years of service on the board. And thank you for the same things I thanked Jenny for. All of the years of service. It's the hardest job you'll ever volunteer for. And so we appreciate everything you're doing. And now as board president, so congratulations.
All right. That was a fast 10 years.
Trust me, it starts to get longer.
Yeah. Or shorter, faster. All right. Next up is our board consent agenda. We'll entertain a motion for approval.
I move to approve the board's consent agenda.
Seconded?
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great, thank you. All right, next up is the superintendent consent agenda.
I move to approve the superintendent's consent agenda.
Second?
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Perfect. All right. Next is school improvement presentations. I think that was, about a month ago that we met? And these schools weren't available that evening, and so they're going to have an opportunity to present their improvement plans to us. So Dr. Williams is going to come up, and Ruth give us an introduction, and then
there. She just needed to touch it, apparently. Fantastic. So we're just excited to follow up and continue our discussion about our school improvement journey. Tonight you'll be hearing from some schools who weren't present as stated, as well as get some mid-year status update because we're around that time. So you'll hear individually from schools tonight, and in our next board meeting you'll hear a district summary of where we are right now, given some of the testing measures that schools have been doing and the short-term measure pieces. So with that, I turn it over to Ruth, who can give you some highlights of what you can expect tonight.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here tonight. I'm super excited because, you know, what you're going to hear tonight is not the same as what you heard before, because what we're doing now is we're monitoring progress of our goals of our SIP toward our goals. And so you're going to hear about where these leaders are with their schools in terms of their goals that they set. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to them.
Back to the beginning. All right, well, good evening, board members. My name is Nick Hansen. I'm principal at Crestline, and thank you for allowing me to share a little bit of our journey and learning around student mathematics and also our teachers' learning as we've embarked on this. I want to start just with a couple of our goals and focus, and these are more of our proficiency goals for students, what we hope to achieve. A 13% increase in mathematics, and our subgroup goal was really related around our multilingual learners and really shrinking that gap between their proficiency levels and our non-ELL students. But I want to start with a little bit of our focus, how we have mapped out our way to get there, and it's really around math practice for engaging our students in purposeful sharing of mathematical ideas, reasoning, and approaches. And the reason that we've chosen this is we think that it's a key indicator, not just in terms of, you know, how we feel like students are making progress on their formal assessments, and it is part of that, so they have access to rich math dialogue from their peers, They're able to explain their math thinking, which we believe cultivates their own learning. But we also think it's a key indicator that gives us some insights to some deeper things around students in mathematics, how they belong within the community, the more likely that they are to share their thinking and take risks to share their thinking with other students, we think really is an indicator of how comfortable they feel within that community to do so. We also believe that it gives us an insight into the identity, how students are seeing themselves and their identities as mathematicians. And these things aren't easy to measure, at least the last two around belonging and identity, but you'll see here, like this picture depicts, we've given all of our students a math perception survey. And so you'll see up there, it measures things like how comfortable they feel sharing their thinking with a partner, how comfortable they feel sharing a whole group. And those last two pieces, I think, really try and get at the identity piece, them being proud of themselves, their math work, and that they see themselves as mathematicians. And I'll speak on that a little bit later as we go on. What we're observing, we've seen an increase in students' effective use of discourse, and one of the ways that that's happening is really, I know this is a word that gets used a lot, but intentionality. Intentionality in the planning. So planning through the lens of how we can engage not just the class, but what we know about individual students in terms of their willingness to share. So we've been unit planning with the new curriculum through the lens of increasing student discourse. It's also been supported with language scaffolding. Nearly all of our teachers have already engaged in a coaching cycle, be it with our coach or our language specialist, specifically around that lens of let's look at a math lesson, how do we plan for intentional talk, how do we support and scaffold that. And then we also are observing that our knowledge about students really has an impact on our ability to serve them. So one of the things I'd like to highlight is, yes, those student surveys have been part of that. What do we know about students? But we've also engaged each teacher in a what we call collaboration, our collaboration days. And part of this is based on the whole group, but it's also based, they bring 3 students, and we talk about students, yes, their math performance, but what do we know about these students? What are the assets that they're bringing that we can dovetail in? And we've seen a lot of traction. These are some visuals that just show the ways that, some scaffolds and supports that teachers have been using to really get at that effective math discourse. Here are some of the successes and challenge. I put a couple of snippets of our iReady. So our goal is around 13%. Just happenstance, we happen right now where we stand. We've seen that 13% increase. We hope to see even more. And I think this next one, I spoke about our subgroup of our ELL or multilingual students, speaks to both a success and a challenge. So in fall, 66% of our ELL students were 2 or more grade levels behind. And so while we have not necessarily seen a huge increase in students, our ELL students, in terms of their proficiency, we have shrunk that gap. Now, as of recently, it's 41% of students are 2 grade levels. So there's still some work to do there, but we are seeing some signs of improvement. So next steps would be to focus on our multilingual students. Again, discourse is not an easy thing necessarily to measure, but we are seeing the majority of students are engaging in purposeful talk in math. But we want to narrow in on specifically our ELL students. What are the barriers to some of our students? The next step, we've gone in and observed a lot of whole group and how talk is presenting that way, but we want to look at the transfer. So when students are approaching math tasks in partners, what are they doing? Is that talk that we're trying to build and scaffold, is that translating when they're authentically out tackling a problem with a partner? And then the last thing would be just getting some intentionality with our planning with data around our PLCs. And I put this visual up there. This is a primary example of those perception surveys I spoke of. I think this encompasses or shows success. This is a student who's been with us for 3 years now, and yes, his formal iReady scores are showing improvements. But what I'm most proud of is some of the deeper things that we talked about. You'll see this student, is indicating that he's proud of his math work. He's seeing himself as a mathematician, and I've seen him in the classroom numerous times, and it's been a great transformation in terms of his willingness to share his thinking and listen to others. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I'm going to pass it over to Emily at Orchards.
Thank you so much. Nick Hansen from Crestline. Oh, I didn't know it did that. Okay. There might be transitions in here I didn't know about. So, hi, I'm Emily Humphrey, principal over at Orchards Elementary School. Thank you so much for having me. Orchards, home of the All-Stars. Our problem of practice that we identified based off of the spring iReady math assessment was that we had 28% of our students at or above grade level in math. And so we wanted to increase that. And our goal, as you can see over on the right side, is 45% of all students would be at or above grade level. So that would be a 17% increase, quick math. And that we wanted that increase because we were looking at a 3-year trajectory to get us to 80% of students being on grade level. So we broke that down across the 3 years with a little bit of an implementation dip for that first year and trying to build up. So over the 3 years, hopefully we would get there. And then we also had our goal that 30% of our students served in MLL, so our multilingual language learners, would be at or above grade level. One of the things we noticed in our problem of practice when we were looking at last year's data and previous years too is that we have a disproportionate number of our students served as multilingual language learners that were below grade level compared to our whole school. So we had 4 big math, we're focused on math, and we had 4 big practices that we were focused on. So similar to Nick over at Crestline, one of those is math practice 4, looking at discourse and how students are engaging in meaningful discourse. And then also math practice 1 with educators establishing clear goals, especially this year with having our new illustrative math curriculum. We thought it would be an awesome opportunity for teachers that they're really digging in to understand the curriculum. And if they understand the curriculum and they are seeing that spiral and that what they call it in illustrative math, the story of units, then they can also help articulate that to students. They'll understand and they'll know that scope. So we're focused on those 2. And then to help support with that, we were focused on planning and collaboration with all of our stakeholders. So that includes our special education teachers, our general education teachers, academic interventionists, and our coaches and admin working together to collaborate and plan our units, and then also analyzing student work and data as a PLC, which is something we've been doing, but with the new illustrative math curriculum, those assessments were looking a little different. They had different ways of assessing, so trying to dig back into that. So those were the practices we focused on. Whew. And then our measures and outcomes. This is fun for all of us. And then our measures and outcomes, we had 3 big ways that we were measuring how the teachers were doing with those practices. So the first was through walkthroughs, and we've had the opportunity to have Ruth and Bobby Height come out to do some of those walkthroughs with our coaching team. And with those walkthroughs, we were looking at how math practices 1 and 4 were being implemented. There's a progression where you can look at, are they more teacher-centered, are they making progress, or are they student-centered? And we knew that since we were early in implementation with this curriculum that we were probably gonna be more on that teacher-centered side. What we've been seeing that's been awesome is we are having a lot of our teachers on that teacher-centered side, but they are starting to move more to that the making progress, where they're starting to, instead of just all I do, it's we are doing some of this together with the discourse and understanding the goals. And then we also have exit tickets for our teachers after our learning labs, which is one of the wonderful things we haven't been able to do for a couple of years because of a lot of the COVID ramifications. But we've had learning labs, and teachers are indicating high levels of understanding of illustrative math, so that's been awesome. And then last, just our fidelity checks. Are we actually using illustrative math? Because if we're not using it, then that's not gonna help us. So we've been going in and seeing, just through walkthroughs, are teachers using illustrative math, and are they also doing it at the time that our block schedule indicates? Because that's essential for our MTSS systems of support. We need to be doing that at that time so that we can help support inclusion for our students. And we've been seeing that while all of our teachers are using illustrative math, we have noticed that some of our teachers are not quite caught up with the scope and sequence, and a lot of that is due to the learning curve of a first-year implementation. Then we've also had the unit assessments. So we took our illustrative math Unit 2 assessments and looked at how students were progressing on that. Unit 2 was identified by Illustrative Math as one of the priority units, so that's why we really looked at that one. And one of the awesome things we saw is that we're trending where a higher percentage of our students who are multilingual language learners, our MLL students, those students are performing higher than our all group. So they have now surpassed the all, which is awesome. And now we're like, okay, how do we get everybody up there? But so that was really exciting. And even looking at our iReady data, we were seeing that in first, second, and third grade, our students served in MLL are scoring higher than the all group. So that was a really awesome thing, that's our subgroup we're focusing on. We've also had some help with Ruth comparing our iReady strands and the unit assessments. Since iReady is everything and the unit assessments are one area of math, we've been looking at how are they comparing on iReady to just that unit, and we've seen that students are scoring higher than they were in previous years on like that area of math, if that makes sense. So that's been awesome. But we know we have next steps to work on. So what's working? We want to keep doing some of the awesome stuff we're doing because it's working. That's great. So continuing to increase students' access to grade level standards. One thing we say a lot at Orchards, and I know as part of MTSS, is that we have to focus on core because we can't intervene our way out of anything. It has to be a core effort. And so we're focusing on core, fidelity with illustrative math, and those learning labs with collaborative planning. But a couple of adjustments that we need to make. Our PLCs have been doing an awesome job focusing on data and student work, but now that they really have a grasp on what the illustrative math assessments are asking and what those look like, now how do they use those to adjust instruction within illustrative math? Because they're also getting a handle on that new curriculum. And then ongoing collaboration with our gen ed and sped teachers, but not just doing it as a PLC, helping guide them to do it one-on-one to really pinpoint some students. And then the last thing is that we didn't have our MLL team, so our paraeducators who work with our students served in MLL at our first round of learning labs. So we're adjusting our second round of learning labs to focus on language routines, vocabulary, all those things. And then we're gonna pay to have them attend as well. So that's our next steps. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Jamie Johnson. I'm the principal at Covington Middle School. Covington believes connection and relationships are intertwined with academic success. And if you look at our two goals, our school improvement goals, those two goals are definitely reflected in our belief. Our number one goal is to increase sense of belonging at Covington, and our second goal is to increase math literacy. From August of 22 to this minute, we have been working really hard to implement 5 different evidence-based practices into our classrooms. Those are equity classroom learning condition goals, Tier 1 rituals, routines, and structures. Of the 8 effective math practices, we're focused on learning targets to focus learning. We also are teaching our students how to do their own weekly goal setting and feedback loops. And we have implemented in 6 of our math classrooms, building thinking classrooms, math classrooms. In October, late October, we started our first round of walkthroughs where we focused on learning target data and sense of belonging target data. We did that with our instructional coach, our admin team, Ruth Beggs, who is our SIP coordinator, and Heather Fowler came out as well to walk through. In the process, the data that we collected led to some next steps. Those next steps were first to share that data with the staff so they understood what we were seeing. We also then began PLC inquiries to pull out PLC to work with specifically in strengthening learning targets. We also have done some all staff and will continue to all staff professional learning. We just started our next cycle of walkthroughs, which will go from February to March 31st. And then we're going to review that data monthly and make sure that we're celebrating growth that we see from this step of review, and then, of course, decide professional learning. with our sense of belonging, we recognized not only did we see the data, but we wanted to get student voice. So we have created our own sense of belonging survey that we're giving out 4 times this year. The first one was in October, and it's centered around those 2 questions. We were able to gather a lot of data because they also gave their thoughts and opinions about those 2 questions. And through that, our equity leadership team at Covington actually has been analyzing that data and then came up with some very specific next steps with that. The first one is we have implemented now, because of this survey, a Covington Ambassadors New Student Friendship Program to create a better sense of belonging. On March 1st, we're going to be doing a professional learning with our staff centered around the question, what does it mean to have our students reflected on the walls of Covington? And then finally, we also recognized that we needed parent voice. And so January 24th, we had our first Covington Listen session where we invited 143 Spanish-speaking families by phone. 30 families came and gave us tremendous feedback in a 2-hour session. And now our equity leadership team is analyzing that data to figure out next steps with that information that we gathered. And we will continue giving this sense of belonging survey. We're going to do another one in February, at the end, April and June. Finally, as we're working on all this implementation, and then it was brought to our attention, hey, what about your outcome data collection process? We realized we didn't have a very clear plan at Covington. And so we've been working in the late part of November and early December to come up with a stronger plan. And as of right now, for the rest of this year, we're planning on using illustrative math unit assessments. And we'll do that every 6 weeks to start gathering data. The first set of data that we got indicated that all our students are at about 53 math proficiency in standards taught at each grade level. It also indicated that our 6th grade group is struggling the most. Our small group in this is our Hispanic English language learners. And this group definitely needs to be a continued focus for us. Our adjustments at this point, based on this data, we don't feel like we have enough to make major adjustments. So we're going to continue with our school improvement plan, continue to collect short-term data, and learn more, and then make future adjustments. We also recognize that we need other data, and so we already are planning for next year to use smarter, balanced interim assessments with our math classes, and there's a plan in place now to start that so that we can have that starting next year at the very beginning of the year. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Amy Haynes. I'm principal at Henrietta Lacks Health and Bioscience High School. Thank you for the opportunity to share with the board and the community the work that we're doing at Henrietta Lacks. Our problem of practice is rooted in the 2 pieces of data that you see on this slide. This is our past reality. As you can see, there's some work that needs to be done in how our students are able to transfer knowledge from inside the math classroom, specifically to larger real-world problems using mathematical representation. In the analysis of our data, both qualitative and quantitative, we have come to the following conclusions that are guiding our work. And what I see in classrooms, what I see in unit assessment data, what I see in walkthroughs is that our students work super hard and they want to get the right answer. They will calculate when given a formula. Our students will comply and work hard and do what we ask of them mathematically when we're giving them steps. What we need to do as a staff is be able to support them better with taking what they know and what they learn in math and productively struggling through complex real-world problems related to math. So taking those formulas, taking those ideas, those different strategies that we're teaching them, and being able to apply them into a variety of different contexts that are outside of the math classroom. Where does math live in the world, and how can we use what we know to productively struggle in solving some of those global issues? Some of these problems don't have definitive answers. Some of them have more than one answer. Some of them have no answer, and we, as a society, don't have the answer to some of those problems yet. But I think what's important is getting students to start thinking about strategies and how to apply things, potentially not having the right answer and having to learn from that and regroup. So rather than some of just the calculation stuff, we want students to take what they know and think about applying it outside of the math class and thinking about like what strategy is best in attacking some of these global problems using math, and how do you know? When discussing with other students, are they finding that their strategies are similar to what others are using? How does this inform their thinking? What are the benefits and the limitations to their strategies? We believe that one of the reasons that many of our students' knowledge isn't transferring to standardized tests like SBAC is because they struggle with that transfer of knowledge. They need more experience using math to grapple with real-world scenarios that are difficult to solve. These require students to really productively struggle. And so that is our focus for our professional development, to help kids to come up with ideas to solve problems, apply them, be wrong sometimes, and regroup using their resources and attack the problem again in a different way. In order to do that, you have to kind of not fear being wrong. And they have to see that being incorrect is sometimes a part of learning. We need to help students get the experience of trying to figure things out, not just using steps to find an answer. And this is our work. I want to point to our belonging goal right here. This is something that's important to our staff as well, because this goal is important in creating the conditions for productive struggle. You have to be comfortable in a classroom, sharing your ideas, admitting what you don't know. And it's hard to do that in a room full of strangers. And so wanting kids to be able to connect and be comfortable learning and grappling with real-world problems is super important to us. And so that is why we have that community building and belonging goal. And as you can see, our measurements are 13% for both. We want to keep it real simple for staff and students. This is where we want to go. 13% in both of those is an increase we want to see. You can see specifically for our Hispanic students, we are not serving them in the way that we should be, and so developing plans to be able to provide more support. So our plan. The first one is to increase productive struggle in the classroom through professional development. The measurements we're using to see how effective we are in doing that is our iReady SBAC interim this second semester. I have a walkthrough tool that has components of productive struggle that I can see in the classroom of what students are doing. I am common assessments and student interviews. The structures for the adult learning and professional development, we use staff meetings, early release time, coaching cycles, and inquiry unit design days are related to the TPEP grant to help teachers further this work. We're also using building thinking classrooms and, of course, the 8 effective mathematical teaching strategies. The second one is to create classroom school climate and conditions that support academic vulnerability needed for productive struggle. So that is our second part of our plan. The measurement tools that we have to gauge our effectiveness are Youth Truth, student community circle feedback surveys, empathy interviews of freshmen and math students, and restorative conversations feedback. So our plan and kind of our subcategories underneath that second goal is that we are implementing consistent community circles in our advisory and our homeroom structures. We did a social emotional learning lesson implementation in advisory, and teachers conducted empathy interviews of freshmen, learned what their interests are, and were really intentional about connecting them to club opportunities and activities that we provide at Gila to help get kids involved early. And then one of the things that I'm most proud of in this second goal is really implementing restorative conversations as a response to student behavior and teacher-to-student conflict. Sean Waters-Smith is my amazing associate principal, and she has kind of led the charge in implementing restorative practices. And we recently did a restorative conversation that involved community members, parents, students, and there was a lot of harm done. And her and I were nervous, and she led this, and this was one of the bigger ones that we had done, and we had our protocols and everything. And I just have to say that I'm incredibly proud of her and the work that she did. It was a really great experience, and I feel like when it was done, not only was the problem solved and behavior was changed, but people were able to connect as a community, and I just really believe in restorative conversations and restorative practices as part of building community in schools. The third part of this, our plan, is to build connections with our Hispanic students and families and to increase community support for a sense of belonging for all students. What we're doing for that is we do monthly Hispanic Family Connection Nights. Much like Jamie did, we called every single family and invited them in their preferred language. And as a result, we had an average attendance before from 3 to 5 families. We had 40 families show up last month. And so we scheduled together a listening session in March 23rd, to get more information from our families. And we are doing monthly nights with topics directed from families. This is what families want to know. This is the information that we're going to give. We also are going to conduct empathy interviews of our Hispanic students to learn more about their experience as math learners and as a student at school. Like, how can we build learning experiences that connect with who they are and learners as people? So, mid-year results, 90 days in. What I can show you, iReady overall, we had a 4% increase in students on grade or above grade level. What I'm really proud of, and I'm proud of my staff and the work that we did, is we had a 9% increase in Hispanic students moving to approaching grade level from originally being 2 to 3 grade levels behind in the fall. And so for 90 days of this plan and for those types of results, I'm just really proud of the people that I work for in my building. We did common illustrative math assessments, and our math teachers got together and reviewed the results to make some instructional shifts. And then in terms of community building, restorative conversations in our community circles. We surveyed some kids on community circles. The majority of kids shared that they felt like community circles were building a sense of belonging, but wanted to see it less in advisory and more in some of their academic core classes. They felt like that would be a more comfortable place for those to show up because they see those students more frequently as part of like the learning and part of the curriculum. 80% of teacher and student restorative conversations led to stopping undesirable behaviors. 4 out of 5 major community restorative conversations prevented formal discipline or classroom exclusion. So in order to do this work, we want to keep kids in class with us, and we want to have healthy relationships between students and teachers, and so I'm really proud of that work and the results that it yielded. So based on that data, here's the next steps. This is what we're doing for math. So we're going to discuss the SBAC test with with our Hispanic Family Connection parents, and answer any questions that we have related to that. The math team got together, and we decided we want to give students interim SBAC to gain familiarity with standardized test questions and how to solve. It's that transfer of knowledge. I'm able to demonstrate my understanding of math within the comfort of my math classroom and within a unit. But how can I take what I know and be able to apply it to outside opportunities? We're going to continue efforts in productive struggle through professional development structures. Our Hispanic student empathy interviews related to math and how they feel as mathematicians. We're going to be doing that in March and April. Our math department to set assessment schedule for semester 2 that will include qualitative and quantitative data from multiple measures, and 2 more inquiry days to discuss results and changes in instruction. So the math department wants to give an interim assessment, but they also want to do exit interviews with kids after that interim assessment. How did you feel when you were doing that? Like, what were some things that you might struggle with? What are some strategies that you used that you got tripped up on a question? Or what was your thinking in that? To kind of demystify and give kids a little bit more confidence when they approach questions of that nature and how to apply what they know. Communication and learning around what data tells us and informs the following structures. So everything that we're getting in terms of our measures is going to go to teachers and go to students and admin teacher feedback using TPEP, collaborative planning and grant release days related to unit design and productive struggle, collaborative learning and planning in remaining building early release days and professional development, and individual coaching cycles with our instructional coach. Next steps for the community. We are creating a student advisory council, and we're gonna hold town halls. Our goal is to have our first town hall before spring break. To have kids have a voice in the school and specific issues. I know I'm looking at Covenant over here. He goes to my school. Cell phones right now are a hot issue, and like making sure that everybody's voice is at the table in terms of cell phones. We're gonna have that Hispanic family listening session March 23rd, and that co-created schedule of monthly family connection nights with family-driven topics. We're gonna conduct a second round of freshman empathy interviews and share the results with the school and stakeholders. We're gonna co-create an incoming freshman orientation with students and staff that includes ways to connect with clubs early and get to know teachers and students. We are gonna utilize our freshman success grant funds to plan a unit zero for incoming freshman year. We call it a unit zero in a way of like, how can we onboard our freshmen to get them involved and connected with students early on? So thank you, you're very like reassuring. She's like nodding and I'm like, yes, thank you guys. And then and continue and expand community circles and restorative practices to be outside of advisory and to address any conflict at school. One of the things we need to do with our restorative framework and how we do restorative conversations is we need to kind of shore up our format to be mindful of time, to make sure that everybody's heard and that we come to a resolution and we're able to move forward in a way that respects student time, in a way that respects teacher time. That was a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we give another round to our principal presentations? And it's just really rewarding to hear our principals continue to step up and take something that is pretty complex. How do you increase math achievement when there's so many factors involved? And you see how there's some consistency. They've set some consistent targets around mathematical practices, and you also see how important it is for our students to have a sense of belonging in their schools, belonging in the math classrooms, having an identity around mathematics, and the work that it takes, the way they have enlisted the various team members that are in their schools, how they're partnering even with our district folks to go in and see how things are being implemented and working, taking advantage of the curriculum that you've adopted to ensure that our students have guaranteed and viable curriculum, which is one of the key and essential elements for school improvement and for students having academic success. So if you have any questions, I'm actually turn it over to Ruth so she can help us facilitate, but we just wanted to give you yet another opportunity so you can see the hard work that our principals are doing. So thank you.
Thank you so much. This is a huge body of work that's being undertaken by all of our principals, and I'm so thankful for these 4 who represented tonight, and we're happy to take questions, any questions that you might have.
Questions? I just wanted to thank everybody for coming individually and presenting for us this evening.
Here.
And we look forward to updates later in the school year.
Great. Okay.
I definitely like the process. I feel like we really can follow along with what you're doing in real time, pretty much. And so I think the choices that you're making look good and solid. Thank you for that.
It's just such encouraging data and stories from these schools about how we can bring somebody who appears to be behind all the way to their peers. I appreciate the effort that you guys and the teachers and paraeducators are putting into this.
I appreciate the emphasis on community building with the students because it's really important. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, and like Dr. Williams said, we'll look forward to talking to you a little bit more in a couple of weeks, hopefully about a district view.
And one of the things that I found kind of interesting is about, like where students see themselves as a learner and if they're willing to share. Because, for a long time, if you weren't good at math, maybe you just were like, I don't want to speak and giving kids the confidence to be able to share and talk in a classroom, and then we can really figure out like where their struggle is and that's accepted.
so important. Yes,
Mhm.
yes. Thank you so much. Really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next on our agenda is matters reserved for board action. And the item that we have on here this evening is action on interim superintendent's contract. So I feel like we need to open up the discussion, and I thought maybe I'd give a little bit of a history on the timeline to what has got us to this point. So as you all know, Superintendent Boyd has been with us since about a year, a little over a year. Brought him on as interim superintendent after a process that we undertook as a board to do a search. We went through and made several calls to different agencies, search firms, superintendent and group, what is it, WASA, in the state of Washington, the superintendent's group, several state leaders, different school districts. Were able to bring John on last February. I think that's when the official interim contract started. He got right to work. Many things happened during that first 6 months on the job before then we hit the summer break. Then this last fall, we did listening sessions with our stakeholders. We've got feedback. We hired Dr. Campbell, who came in, gave us a presentation on what she heard from those listening sessions in January. Superintendent Boyd gave us a presentation to the community about the work that he's done this far and kind of the vision that we have for the future of Evergreen. And that kind of what brings us to tonight to have this conversation. I probably am missing a whole lot more, but that was kind of a brief recap.
I would like to fill in a blank.
Yes,
for you.
please.
So during the original process to find a interim superintendent, and once we went through a couple of search firms, the different organizations, and all the recommendations that we received and verifications, we did have filling this room with stakeholders to interview John and talk to him before we made a final decision. And that was represented by staff at every position, administrators, teachers, admin, you name it, they were here. And so we felt very encouraged going forward with him as an interim superintendent because it was an overwhelming positive response to the interview that they had with John. So I just wanted to put that little piece in there because that was a pretty big.
No, I appreciate
group
you
of
doing
people.
that because you're right, I
That's okay.
missed that part. And probably there might have been some other things. So we can open up for conversation. We can take a motion and then have a conversation.
We're all deciding who should speak first.
Okay, well, someone say something.
Oh, I guess I'm being invited to speak first. I try not to do
Rob.
that anymore. It's
Let's not all be shy, right?
fill up the room because I think about so many details, and I actually wrote down a lot of it when I thought about the circumstance that the pandemic and the political pressures and things imposed on our staff, and the trauma that they and we all experienced all the way through there. One of the highlights of watching John work at repairing those relationships is that we made visible and significant progress, both at the board level, senior leadership. I have a real sense that the organization as a whole, the system as a whole, is calmer now than it was last year, this time. And it takes a strong and transparent leader to do that, to build trust where trust has been weakened by the forces around us. And first of all, I want to thank you for that, John. It's an honor to watch someone that good at it at work. And I took some other notes and things, but I think that's what I wanted to say, is that I really believe that part of the work is calm teachers, calm administrators, people who feel like there's some hope, And the strategic plan process that has come forward from last year's work since then is really imparting that hope to me.
I think as someone who's been on the board as long as I have, I've seen various different processes and coming to settling on who you want to be the district leader for our staff. And we've done 2 national searches in the past. One resulted in a very quick turnaround, and one that gave us someone that worked for us in a couple of capacities for a little bit longer length of time. But then we've done internal promotions. That's how we brought John Dieter on board, and he ended up being such an amazing superintendent and was with us. I was trying to think if he was superintendent for 10 or 11 years. I mean, it was a pretty long time. I mean, anymore, it seems like superintendents' average length of time staying anywhere is like 4 years. And so, you know, that was a pretty long tenure with us, and it was a successful relationship. We've hired from within, and we've hired from out. And, you know, it just, there's no magic bullet here. So I like to just go with what I really know. And right now, you know, in working with John, knowing what our system really needed, I feel like, just like what Rob was saying, that it's more stable, it's calmer. There's integrity here with John that is important to build trust for not only with the board, but with all of you, the staff, our families, our community. And I feel very confident that that interim superintendent that we hired, or that we brought on board, has taken this year-long interview with us, and it's been probably one of the most peaceful times that I've seen as we've moved forward with a new superintendent. So in that regard, I feel very confident that this is the route to go.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I think in this past year, we've seen, I mean, obviously we have many challenges and things to overcome, and there's still lots of things to work through. But just the work that John's done in that past year to just kind of get us back, this big ship, back on course, and kind of align us to where we want to head for the future has been quite remarkable. I mean, especially coming on to the heels of failing a levy and then kind of rallying the entire community together in a short amount of time to pass that second attempt.
Well, I even just look at tonight's presentations and seeing the very thoughtful, methodical planning and intentionality about what we're going to do about our math scores and our kids' relationships to school is probably the most structured I've ever seen us have in like 20-something years. I mean, we've had good work done in our district. We've got great people here. But this has been, I think, the fastest I've ever seen a shift happen, and in such a positive way, and it's student-centered, and that's what we want.
That's what we've called for years.
Mm-hmm.
I started, a month after you? And, you know, same deep end. And the entire time I've seen that you've been very student-centered, student-focused. You have the best intentions at heart for the district and community. And so I think it's a no-brainer at this point. Yeah.
All right, do we want to make a motion? Do we need to ask anybody in the audience if they have? Is there anyone in the audience that has any comments that they would like to make about this? Hi there.
It works.
Catch.
Woo-hoo. All that baseball did me good, huh?
Can you tell us your name and district?
Phil Kronobush. I'm
Thank
a
you.
stakeholder, grandparent in the district. And, you know, obviously we've had some interaction with John, and it's positive, specifically because he engaged with us and basically the community. And I think going forward, that's actually something that he should continue to do. Not just with us, because obviously we're just one piece of the puzzle. Obviously, in speaking with him, it was clear that parental engagement is very lacking. Everything about cell phones, lots of issues. But he engaged us and he understands those points, and we saw that. The thing to say here is to go forward, is to continue with the goals that he mentioned to us. He saw the OSPI issue, the levels, we all know that, and if it continues to see that as the mark that we have to achieve, we have to bring that up. And he mentioned something that was really important. He said, I told all my staff that this had to be our goal, and he pointed to the graph on the side of his wall, and it was the OSPI numbers, and he knew that. So I appreciate that he saw the important thing. And so that coming from me, that one person in the community, congratulations, go ahead. I hope you put him on as the superintendent. But I hope you also give him enough resources to make that job successful. It's important to see that, whether it's money or additional staff, to achieve these very difficult problems. So that's what I'd like to say. Thank you so much already.
Appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's why that levy was so important to pass, to help with that work.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, because the thing about it is you don't shy away from a challenge, right? We know that there's a problem and we got to figure it out and work together to solve it, and got to keep working at it. Any other comments from the audience?
This is not normally a quiet group. Come on now.
Okay.
Need a motion?
Motion.
I would like to have the honor of making a motion to make Superintendent John Boyd our permanent superintendent.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Did I need to? I do need to do a roll call vote. Thank you, Rob. Director Gronwald?
Aye.
Director Weatherspoon?
Aye.
Director Perkins?
Aye.
Director Bradford?
Aye.
It's an aye for me.
Congratulations, John.
Congratulations. All right, and with that,
Does John have anything to say?
he gets to do a superintendent report after this, so we'll just stick to the agenda.
All right.
So with that, we do need to ask Janae Gomes if she would prepare an addendum to the interim superintendent's contract to bring forward for our next meeting, where we just remove the interim label to on the existing contract and no other changes. Okay, thank you. All right, great. So I will now let Superintendent Boyd give us his report.
Very uncomfortable to have people talking about you, but I really do appreciate all the kind words from you. And I also appreciate the opportunity to have a chance to try out for the position for a year. And it's not been easy, I will say. We've had some real big challenges, but I've enjoyed every moment of it. Working with the board, working with the staff. This is the most incredible group of talented people that you see in front of you in the staff. And you saw 4 principals come up today, focused on instructional leadership. Our top leadership is just amazing. So I feel like I'm surrounded by like-minded people, people that have a heart for kids and want to improve and do better. And I couldn't ask for anything more. I was talking to my wife about that. She asked me, well, how are you feeling about this potential appointment? I said, I feel like I feel like it's just before tip-off of a basketball game. You know, you practice all week, you're ready for the game, and just before tip-off, you feel excited and nervous and just ready to go. And I feel ready to go, ready to lean in, and ready to continue some of the incredible work that you see the folks in the audience here that have helped me pull us around. I'm absolutely thrilled and excited about our strategic plan. I think you're seeing just a tiny example of what the power of leadership pulling around a common focus, and the potential of that is unlimited. There's some amazing people here, and I couldn't feel more excited and hopeful about our future, and just want to thank you all for the opportunity. And that's my superintendent report.
Well, congratulations. Thank you, John. All right, next is a department update, teaching and learning and equity update. Who's giving us the update this evening? Clarissa?
There you go.
Thank you. Good evening, Board of Directors, student reps. Really excited to be here with you this evening. Again, happy Black History Month and congratulations, John. So I am going to talk a little bit about making Black history in Evergreen. And so one of the things that, again, I keep bringing to you all is my intention around gratitude. And the theme for Black History Month, Black Resistance, is very near and dear to me because I feel as though joy and gratitude is a form of resistance. And so I'm keeping that at the forefront. And in a way that I'm doing that is by making sure that the people in my life or that I know that are in Evergreen get their flowers. And what do I mean by flowers? So in my culture, we have a phrase that says, give them their flowers. And what that means is give people their props, give them their thanks prior to them leaving the earth, right? So they can have the opportunity to share with you the joy that they provided for you while they were here. And so there are two people that I'd like to bring to your attention that are making Black history in Evergreen and that I would like to provide flowers for. The first person being our very own Director Weatherspoon for being the first Black school board member in Evergreen Public Schools.
Thank you.
Thank you. That is a moment of joy. It is also a moment for pausing, right? It is 2023. And we are just now having our first Black school board member, so we have work to do. But this is a very big point of joy for us, and I'm very, very happy to be present and to give you your flowers so that you can enjoy them while you are here.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. The next person that I'm going to be shouting out is not here with us this evening. She's out and about. It is Valentine's Day. But I do want to give her, I'll have the flowers for her. I would give them to her. Her name is Chibia Uniwa. And Chibia, yeah, she is one of our very own orchestra teachers at Mountain View High School. And her art is featured nationwide in Target. And I happen to be wearing one of the shirts that she designed that is in Targets nationwide. She also has cards that she designs. But this is a specific for honoring Black History Month. And so she is also making Black history as a member of the Evergreen community. And so these are the two people that I would like to give their flowers to this evening. And as a point of joy, remember that we always have something to be grateful about and to be joyous about. And these are two people who remind us of that. So I just wanted to make sure we pause for that. And Two other people I want to introduce you to for the equity update are our two attendance team members, okay? We have Vicki Wood, who is our attendance specialist, and we have Erin Helenihi, who is our student engagement specialist. As you may or may not know, we have a list of students that is growing, but we are taking care of it. These two are, who are either on the verge of disengaging or have already disengaged from school. Vicki, our attendance specialist, is the one who tries and catches our kids before they are labeled or titled as truant. She is meeting with parents. She's doing home visits. She's going to the schools to see what is it that we can do to help keep you with us, okay? And she has a partner, and Erin is who she partners with when and if those efforts don't quite hit the mark for our students and they end up disengaging. And so Erin then comes behind and continues that partnership in ways that might involve community resources or whatever we need to do to get our students to come back to us. And so as we are thinking about things that are on the horizon for us, right, decreased enrollment and potential budget cuts, the work that these two of my team members are doing is very, very important. And the two things that they mentioned that come up as they're talking with parents and students as to why our students are disengaging. The first is for a physiological need, meaning they had to move to attain better housing. They had to move to be closer to family. And so they just left, right? They had to go, okay? And then the second reason is, which breaks their hearts every time they hear it, I didn't feel as though I belonged in the space for whatever the reason was. So what the principals were sharing with you, their work behind honoring students, making them feel welcome, but also honoring them in their academics are ways in which we are hoping to be proactive about keeping our kids. Because if you talk to either of these two, they will tell you that their goal is to work themselves out of a job because they want all of our kids to stay with us. No truancy and no disengaged kids. And so their day-to-day work is to make sure that we do that. And so I wanted to highlight them and share the ongoing work of the equity department via attendance. And that is my update for this evening.
I got to work with Vicki on the strategic plan. We were in the small group together, and I was really impressed with her strategies for working with our students and keeping them engaged in school. She was really awesome to listen to.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed her a lot.
Thank you for teaching me that idiom. I love it.
Which one? Oh,
Bring
giving
you
the
your
flowers?
yeah.
Yes, you're welcome.
Thank you for getting me flowers.
You're welcome for the flower.
Thank you, Jackie, for being with us.
I wanted to tell a story. My mother-in-law passed away recently. She was a teacher for 30 years, and she couldn't get a job in Evergreen. She tried for years, and she couldn't get hired. And so she was super proud that I got this job. And it meant a lot to her. So thank you.
I honor her with you this month. Can we call her name? What is her name?
Sophie Weatherspoon.
Sophie Weatherspoon. I call your name. I honor you. Thank you for sharing that with us. Any other questions? Comments?
Well, I don't know if I can top any of that, but I do want to say that I love their goal about getting, work themselves out of a job, right? Because they're doing everything for the right reason and getting kids to show up every day and be present, and then they can be engaged in the learning that the principals and everybody have set forth for them. So,
yes,
good work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next up is just information item only, which is our financial statement that run through December of 2022. And then on our agenda next is our student board representatives report. We've been keeping them very busy, getting them onboarded with things and meetings, and they have been doing some work themselves, and they're going to give us an update. Who's going to go first, Covenant or Sullivan?
He's right there.
At the mic.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Covenant Chikwache, and I am a junior at Gila High School. I am very grateful to be the first ever student board representative for Evergreen School District. I am honored to be a voice for students and to represent my peers to the district. Part of this position is working with the Wilster Student Network. I recently attended a meeting and it was fun. I got the chance to hear from other student representatives and we discussed whether student representatives should be allowed to vote during board meetings. We discussed the process on how to appeal a legislative vote as a student representative in case we do not like the way bills are being voted on that could be beneficial for our students. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again. Good evening, board, superintendent, audience. My name is Sullivan Taylor. I am a junior at Heritage High School. And student voice and ensuring we equitably represent all students in our decision-making is important to us. And we are excited to announce our first project with district leadership and the admin interns is to host student voice workshops. In these workshops, Youth Truth will support a group of students from across the district in elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools. Students will engage in activities that are tailored to district priority areas so we can influence the strategies and help us meet our math goals. Last Thursday, I attended breakfast with the board over at Legacy High School, where 20 students provided suggestions on how we can continue to improve their school experience. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Do we have questions for Sullivan or Covenant about what they've been doing?
What was the consensus on student voting on boards at the WASDA thing?
It's still ongoing. So.
Still ongoing, okay.
Lots of discussion.
Have to change a couple of laws.
Yeah. Any other questions? I know that we've got some, you guys are going to both do some policy work with Rob and Robert's Rules of Orders work in the next meeting and then meet with the Youth Truth Survey folks too.
Yeah, and just to let you know, we had a quick meeting with the Youth Truth people to kind of explain the idea that we have 2 student board reps. We're still trying to figure out, we want the board reps to have some agency around developing the leadership model, but this will be kind of a good first step in helping us, organize a feedback loop from our students related to something very specific that we're focused on, and that's math. And so they're going to come in, they're going to fly in, from San Francisco. They're not charging us anything. They're also doing some focus group work around the math questions that they ask on the Youth Truth Survey, and they're going to come in and facilitate this conversation. So it's really super exciting opportunity for us, and I think for you moving forward. So it should be good.
All right, thank you. I'm excited to keep hearing updates from the work that you're doing. All right, next up is board comments. So these are comments by the school board. Anybody have anything that they want to move forward?
I do.
Yes.
I wanted to give a shout out to Craig for the community report. I thought it was just very, very well done. I love the new emphasis on the pictures, sort of showing the community just where our money is going, what we're doing. The explanation in the back with explaining the enrollment decline and how it affects the budget, it was all very clear, very transparent. It's good communication. Thank you. Yes, your department, thank you.
Agreed. We have a legislative update in the board workshop, but I just wanted to say that, I took my family to DC with me, and that gave my son an opportunity to join us as the WASDA delegation to the Department of Education and to Congresswoman Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez and to Senator Cantwell. I always get those two. It was Senator Cantwell. And it's a proud papa moment. I was I was really impressed by he just told it like it was. He had the role of talking about how special education helped him, and he gave his message clearly without any deference, without any fear, and everyone was impressed that one of our Evergreen students could come and do that, and just to notice that when we bring a student into the room, they engage more. And it's not just adults talking about how this or that is underfunded, it's what is the experience. I was also able to take a couple of Evergreen stories and relate them about where special education is falling short and what we think is necessary as far as funding goes to bring supports to those students. This is all about those students.
Were you able to show them the funding model spreadsheet that you had showed us?
Yeah, it was a significant part of the meeting with the Department of Education. And it really gave them something to look at while we were talking about it, something concrete. When I showed that to Congresswoman Glusenkamp-Perez, she just tapped my screen on District 3 and watched it zoom in, and we had a conversation about our congressional district and that piece of it. But she was well-versed on special education. And it was just a good time was had by all. He had the time of his life. I want to be able to bring students, I want us to be able to bring students to DC each year to help us engage with the senators and with the congressperson.
Did you get any hints that the feds were going to give us a hand on special ed funding?
The people we talked to, the senators and congresspeople that we talked to, I also sat in on a meeting with Rep. Newhouse. And they were all engaged in the idea that if we bring supports to kids, they'll do better in school. And,
How that works.
and how to structure that and so forth. We didn't do a lot of complaining. We just said, here's the reality, and that went on from there. I'm pretty much not allowed to take that webpage down for the time being.
Yeah.
And it would be a lot of hobby fun to go and try to do what other states, because Rep. Newhouse asked, what's it like in Idaho, what's it like in Oregon? And I don't have the same financial reports that I have access to in Washington. But I think the problem is nationwide. Yeah, that's the thing. So we had that experience and came home. We can springboard off that. Still have some thank you letters to write, especially to Rep. Newhouse. Yeah.
Any other comments?
I don't want to take it, or me and Vic also were at the breakfast with the board at Legacy last week. Sullivan joined us. So like Sullivan said, we had 20 students that signed up to come and talk and share with us, so much that we actually were able to split them into 2 groups, which allowed us to hear from more student voice and individual opinions on what was going on, and a lot of good stuff to bring back and what they're looking for. So I was very impressed, as I always am, with the comments and what they got to share, or what they shared with us. Also on Friday, I participated in the Leadership Clark County education session. I was part of the forum. I think there was 5 of us, in discussing equity in education. And that was unfortunately only an hour for us to kind of talk about all of the different areas. We had someone from WSUV, Ridgefield High School, Vancouver, and Rika from EOCF, so our Birth of 5 kiddos also. So unfortunately, it wasn't enough time to kind of get it all out there, but it was a great session, and I'm glad that we were able to kind of spotlight some of the stuff that we do here.
Thanks for representing us there.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. Just to piggyback on what Jenny was talking about out at Legacy, that was a great session. It really was. I had the pleasure of having Sullivan at my group, and she's quite the interviewer, I have to say. I was impressed. There were some interesting things that came out of that. One of which being kids asking for consequences for behavior that we know is not okay. And being, wanting to have some boundaries that they knew they could count on. And I thought that was really important. But the overriding was the relationships and how much they feel like that school is a community and that they all belong. And they have a very strong sense of belonging there that was, I don't think we see that in any other school the way we see it there. So I just was really pleased with what I was hearing about the relationships and what that means to them academically. They definitely want more after-school activities. And so we've got all the notes, and we'll have to debrief on that because they were really chatty. They did not mind sharing anything with us, so that was good, which is normal. So that was great. Then John and I had the opportunity to visit one of our local companies here, Absci Biotech. It was very interesting. I know absolutely nothing about artificial intelligence, but I do feel like I know more now after being there. They're very interested in how they can partner with our schools, and I see some pretty amazing opportunities there for our students who want to get into biotech and all these other things that they do. It's like totally way over my head as far as what they do, the science of it all.
Mine too.
It was fascinating, and it's quite the building. Yeah. It looks like an amazing place to work. Yeah. What they do for their employees and stuff, and I can tell their employees work really, really hard, but they're really supported. And they give them really good lunch and breakfast.
They hire PhDs from all around the world to come and engage in processes related to manufacturing medicines using AI. And they can do it astronomically faster, the iterations to get to medicines and iterations of medicines, customize it for individuals. And they're really eager to tap into the school district and have us partner with them. So just one example of the many community members that are out there that want to and willing to partner with us.
Yeah, so there'll be more conversations with them and see how that can roll out. So it was a fun afternoon. And then let's see, I know there's something else here. Breakfast with the board. Oh yeah, Jackie and I were at the strategic plan core team meeting that Clarissa was talking about. And I got to tell you, the thought that's going into the ideas on how do we accomplish the goals that we have, it's innovative, but it's all based on what's researched and works. It's not just pie in the sky thinking. I feel like it's going in a really strong direction and it's moving along. That's the thing I like to see is it's action. I mean, there's real action happening and people are really, really engaged with the process. And it's a nice big group of people. I was in a different room than you, so I don't know what your experience was like, but
Very similar, yes.
Yeah, I was impressed. I thought that was good. And then I went to the fentanyl awareness meeting, and I thought I knew it was a problem. I mean, it's on the news, no matter what news channel you see. I had no idea how the level of it here in our town, the sneakiness of how they're making these pills and making them look like regular prescription pills, and the ways that they want to make the things look enticing to kids. Because when you start making things look like a spree tart or, Skittles or something, that's not about adults. And so that piece of it I found just, I mean, I hate to say I wasn't shocked, but I was just like it almost left me just like frantic trying to figure out, okay, what do we got to do? And I asked the kids over at Legacy, because it was the same day, about what they knew about it. And they actually they want more. They want more information. They didn't feel like they had comprehensive information yet, but they want more. So I was glad to hear that they did want more, and it's glad to hear that we have resources to help us do that. So that piece.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on that, Senior Director of Secondary Heather Fowler is working with Shane, and apparently Beaverton has a curriculum that they've used. So we're looking at bringing that into the schools and delivering that to students through the educational process, so that we can build more awareness. And schools are also doing their own individual things, but we feel like we need to have a comprehensive approach to getting the word out about this very insidious and dangerous drug.
And it was nice to see community members there, and we had students there, and they were asking a lot of questions, and someone in the audience here was there. And, that was good, but I would have liked to have seen more people. But I know we had a group in the...
125 in the big session and another 40 or so Spanish-speaking families.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty good showing.
So, yeah, it was good. It was nice to have people there, and I think people were really kind of shocked by some of that information. There was something else I was going to bring up, and it just went right out of my head. I'm having a senior moment. I know. I don't know how many of you've seen the reports on the latest CDC report on mental health as it pertains to teenage girls. If that doesn't tell us that the work that we're doing on building relationships with our students and how critical that we have these social, emotional, learning for our kids, I mean, it's heartbreaking. It was just heartbreaking. And so I just want us to just stay that course and just keep doing more and more that we can to make sure our kids feel like they belong here, they're safe here, and it's a great place to learn, and that they matter. There's too many kids that don't believe that they matter, and that really is hard to fathom for me. Sorry, I'm on a tear this week.
No, it's all important stuff. Thanks, Victoria. All right, any other comments? All right, we'll go ahead and move to future agenda items. Does anyone have anything they would like to bring forward? All right, if not, then we'll go ahead and move to public comments at this time. Any community member wishing to address the board may do so during the designated time on the agenda for public comments, as long as the comments are not personnel related or about an individual employee or student, are not legal in nature. Each speaker will be allowed 3 minutes to address the board. Comments are to be directed to the board of directors as a whole and may not be addressed to any individual member of the board, the administrative staff, or the audience. Please state your name and district affiliation, if any. And it looks like we have one person signed up this evening, Margaret Hunter. Come on up, Margaret. Come on up.
Margaret.
How are you this evening?
I am doing pretty good considering it's Valentine's Day and this late at night. So I did send the board an email hoping that you guys read it. So I'm not going to go on and on about what was in that. I decided best tonight to quote other people, doing a little bit of digging. And I will leave this article with you, and it's got great addresses for you to check out. There are lots of pros to school start times being pushed back. Almost every study that I looked at on the internet was about districts that were starting schools before 8 o'clock, well before 8 o'clock, and their pushback late start time was looking at like 8:30, 8:45. Starting out in the middle of this article where it starts talking about the cons. This is an article that has about 7 pages of pros and all of that information wrapped up in data. I work at Covington Middle School. Our poverty level is high, our income level is very low. Our parents that are single, foster kids, transition kids, and homeless kids are really high. So starting in the middle of the cons for late start times, particularly an hour and a half later than we currently are. Despite the widespread popularity of the idea of later school start times, the California law is controversial, as they wanted to have a law that no district could start before no school could start before 8:30. Many educators, district leaders, and parents believe the shift will present significant operational and logistic challenges, complicating the scheduling of after-school extracurricular activities and disrupting the schedules of working parents. Both the California Association of Teachers, the school board of the state, opposed this measure when it came to the floor in California legislature on these grounds. They were also citing the erosion of local control and a failure to respect parental decisions and community input. When this bill was being debated, it called attention to the challenges facing low-income families and less workplace flexibility. We know from experience that many of these parents will drop their children off at school at the same time they do now, regardless of whether there is supervision. There's not enough funding from the state for before-school programs to ensure the safety of students will be dropped off early. Goes on to talk about individual parents like Adriana Aguilera, a parent of 2 and a resource teacher in their school district, where they talked about her morning and afternoon schedule changing. Thanks to the support of her husband and many family members, it's manageable, but she worried all the time about other parents that did not have the same flexibility and support. This new time may benefit teenagers, but it does not accommodate the lifestyles of single-parent families, families with multiple children who attend different schools, and families where both parents work. At her school, Aguilera says the later dismissal times also affected students who participate in sports and other after-school activities. Overall, she said the move to later start times is well-intentioned, but in her experience, student schedules, activities, and lack of proper nutrition play just as big of a role in inadequate sleep. Until these topics are addressed, teens will continue to be unfocused and fatigued regardless of school start times. At my school in particular, I started making a bullet list this week of people that came to me with concerns. And these are people from staff assistants to coaches to after-school activities, supervisors, and even administrators. Morning supervision for early arrivals. We already have kids that arrive too early. Middle school kids need to be supervised. Transportation for clubs and activities and sports that will likely move to the AM so that we can keep our coaches and supervisors. Family schedules, highly disrupted. 1.5 hours is a huge shift when parents and families are not involved in the decision making. I don't know how many middle school parents were at the table when this proposal was drawn up, but I haven't talked to any middle school parents that were there. Parents talking about calling their children to make sure they're awake for school because their start time is much later than they leave for work. A loss of after-school staff and volunteers, particularly at my school. We have a hard time getting coaches, advisors, even linesmen and scorekeepers for the later times that we hold already. It will be even more difficult. Already, the only 2 scorekeepers we have for basketball and volleyball have already said, I would not be able to accommodate these after-school schedules. I will not do this next year. Middle school kids entering high school with a start time that's almost an hour later than their middle school time could snowball into many sophomores and freshmen not being ready for an earlier start for their first period as they move into high school. There's a whole bunch of other things that just kind of reiterate the bullet points. I did have a teacher say, if this may fix our schedule for buses, but we are efficiencying ourselves out of effectiveness. Will this be effective, or will we just have kids that stay up later and continue to miss first period or come late? Also, because of the lack of supervision in the morning, the problem could be worse in middle school. But of course, I wouldn't come here to complain. There could be a more creative fix. Since we were an 8:30 start when I started this district, and the district moved middle school up to the 8 o'clock to accommodate a later start for high school kids. Most studies and data show that the older the student is, the more a late school start time would benefit them. Has the district team thought about pushing high school back a little bit more? allowing for 0 period students to have more time to get to school. Giving middle school back, it's a little bit later start time between 8 and 8:30, and allowing for elementary schools to have their earlier starts that they may or may not be asking for. In the end, what I would ask for a district that's screaming equity and priding themselves in community conversations, that before we decide a 9:30 start time for all middle schools, are we going to bring middle school parents and families to the table to ask them what they think? Studies widely show that parents do not like such large shifts in time schedules because it is very difficult for them to alter their family schedule for those types of changes. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. Okay, and with that, we're going to go into a recess where the board will sign paperwork. They will reconvene in a board workshop where we will do policy revisions, have student board representative, student voice project information, and then we'll have a legislative update. Thank you.